Pre-warning, this video will contain spoilers for The Tyrant's Tomb by Rick Riordan. Hey guys, and welcome to the episode of A Healthy Dose of Fran. Today, Percy Jackson returns in a video looking at the book The Tyrant's Tomb, but particularly a question we have all had since its release and finishing the book, and that is about Frank Zhang and how after his sacrifice he managed to come back. So today, I'll be exploring how on earth Frank survived. Now, considering the loss that we had of Jason in the Burning Maze, having Frank survive, lots of people felt kind of slightly betrayed by, because if Frank was able to survive what was meant to be the unsurvivable, blowing up, then how on earth was Jason not able to survive in some form or even have a chance at survival? So the reason why I'm doing this video is exploring the possibilities of the ways in which Frank's powers and abilities may have helped him to actually survive it. Now we know that he used his fire, which was his source of life, to set off the explosion. Now, using the fire stick of life, you'd assume that would mean that he, would no longer have any life. But as we see later on, when he returns on the back of the horse, whose name I can never remember, I think it's Orion, is it? Hazel's horse, that's all I remember. But we always wonder how that happened, and there's no other explanation about it. But I wonder if maybe it's to do with Frank's sacrifice as a whole. Throughout the whole book, we are seeing Frank, in Hazel's opinion, be reckless with his own life. But I don't consider it to be recklessness. Instead, I consider it to be him taking on this leadership role and knowing that being a leader for an army, for a people, and being this symbol of a leader and a hero, takes on these responsibilities of knowing that at one point it's likely his life will end, and it's him accepting this possibility and almost inevitability due to the fire stick that basically controls his life. It's him taking on this knowledge of one day I will die, so I will do everything in my power to make sure that I save my people, even if that means sacrificing myself. Now, by sacrificing himself, I think it would have proved to Juno, who, as we know, is the person who kind of set up the creation of his life being tied to this fire stick, as she has done in the past, and showing his sacrificial nature of knowing that this was his time. This was his time to use his life to give up and save everyone in the best way that he knew how. Literally giving his life, using the thing that had always been debilitating to him from the very beginning of his life till now, using it as a strength. And so maybe Juno granted this gift of him having a second chance, and that fire not being his last. Whether that means that he doesn't have his powers anymore, because of course that was the reason why he had the fire stick, because he was so powerful. Who knows? We don't really see that at this point. But it also brings up this question, as mentioned before, of if the gods could grant a gift for Frank, why can't they do the same for Jason? Because technically Jason is sacrificing himself as well, because he knew that there was a prophecy that either he or Piper would die. But I think in this case, for Frank, it was a literal sacrifice of life. He was using his actual symbolic, not even symbolic, it's the stick he has is his actual life force, and he deliberately went with the intention of using that, whereas Jason, although knowing it was an inevitability, didn't go with the intention of dying, whereas Frank willingly sacrifices himself. So there is different connotations in their actions, which maybe is what the gods differentiate by. But as Frank, Apollo and Hazel all kind of think of later is if they could have done that for Frank, why didn't they just do that for Jason? And I think that's an interesting question, which also then leads to Apollo's just general character growth. But we're not going to talk about Apollo, because I've done a video all about him, you know, whatever side it pops up, go check that out. Today we are talking about Frank, who also has just generally incredible, amazing abilities, which I think is also another possibility as to how he may have survived. Anyone ever heard of a phoenix? Oh yeah, I'm calling it now. Frank somehow turned into a phoenix when he was going up in flames. And as we know, phoenixes, as we've seen in Harry Potter with Fawkes, ignite themselves and are reborn in a sense. And maybe that's what happened with Frank. He ignites his life force, but then comes back anew. And as mentioned before, we don't know if he still has his powers or if they're still at the level as they were before. Maybe this renewal of life by using this phoenix transformation to become a new person and a new being with a new life means he's not going to have the same powers as before. Maybe he won't even be able to transform in future, because him using this phoenix transformation to input himself into a new life is one without the gifts, because he's a new form. Another one which is possibly true, but it's not as interesting, but I'm going to put it out there because I feel like someone's going to bring it up in the comments. As was mentioned by Raina earlier in the book, her cloak has magic-like abilities in that it can deflect weapons, it can deflect pretty much anything if she uses it to protect herself. It's kind of like an impenetrable shield. And Frank also had that, being a Pretor himself. So maybe his cloak somehow managed to protect him from the flames. As we see him coming back, everything is burnt away pretty much except for the cloak. So maybe he was knocked out from smoke inhalation or something like that, and that's why when Apollo called for him, he didn't answer. But the cloak has protected him by covering, you know, the most important parts, the body, and, you know, the head, basically just covering his body and keeping him safe from the flames around him as they died down. And I know that these stickers gone, and that's a big thing that I think is just a sort of gift from the gods, that he has sacrificed his life. But the cloak could be something significant too. Who knows? And also, just for a random one that I want to put out, because I think everyone's going to get really mad and think it's hilarious, maybe he's like Magnus Chase and he's now an Inharja. I can't say the name. Inharja? Is that it? Inharja? He's a Norse thing. Maybe he's actually dead, but he's in the mortal world. But he's like Magnus. Possibility, probably not, but I wanted to put it out there because I think it's going to make people annoyed, and it's entertaining for me that people could get annoyed by this stuff. But those are the possibilities that I think it could be. The gods granted him a new chance because he sacrificed his literal life force. He's a phoenix because, yes, Pretor Cape protected him because that's what it does. He's like Magnus Chase. Those are the 4 things that I think could possibly be why Frank survived. But what do you guys think? How do you think Frank survived this explosion? What are your theories or ideas? Whatever they are, let me know in the comment section down below. And also, you know, let me know what you thought of mine as well. As always, before I sign off, I'm going to give a huge shout out to the fantastic artist of today's thumbnail, Colonel Bacon Bits, who is a pretty good friend of mine, and I am truly appreciative of the artwork of Frank that I have been allowed to use for today's thumbnail. So to Colonel Bacon Bits, thank you so much, and if you want to support them, all of their links are in the description box. As always to you guys though, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you go to the description box down below, you'll find the links to all of my social media, my merchandise store and my Patreon. If you want more Percy Jackson content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already. As always, thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.